What would you do if you worked in a haunted library? Have you ever had an imaginary friend that turned out to be more real than you expected? Could voices in our dreams actually be giving us signs? Today, we test the believability of the protective imaginary friend.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That's right. It's Tuesday. It's a new week. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been sick, but last episode my mom texted me. She's like, "You sound nasally. Are you okay?" So actually I was
You were under the weather a
I
little
was.
bit.
So I hope I sound better. I feel better.
I love that your parents listen.
How are you
I do.
feeling? Yeah.
I feel fine. I feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that they've listened about 3 million times in the last 3 years.
It's just your parents.
It's just them.
Good
They're
to
just
know.
creating all these fake accounts to message. They haven't gone to their real jobs in 3 years.
Just supporting us, which is really nice.
So it is listener submission Tuesday. What that means is
It's awesome your parents submitting these.
they're very creative. If you have a personal paranormal encounter experience, if you've been haunted for about 25 years and you want to tell someone about it, you can go to believingthebizarre.com, go to submit your experience. There's a form there. Please, stretch your fingers out, do some exercises, make it a long, detailed
25 years. That's very specific.
message, and we will put it on the podcast eventually.
That's a very important keyword there, eventually.
I got 2 stories. This is something we've been doing lately. Lately is in probably the last year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Is we'll take a little bit of a shorter listener submission and throw it up top, and then we'll round it out with a little bit longer of a main story.
Yeah, it's a good format.
Ghosts, so to speak, spirits, invisible yet sometimes visible entities is the theme of today.
Oh, I thought you were reciting something from Shakespeare.
No. I hope what I just
Cool.
said makes more sense than Shakespeare. We got 2 stories. I do want to say, not so much in the first story, but in the second story we get to today, definitely trigger warnings. There will be talk about physical abuse, physical trauma, suicidal thoughts. So if you are not comfortable with that, you are more than welcome to listen to our first story. And you can, by your own discretion, listen to the second. I just want to make sure.
So we're all aware here.
Yeah, that will be discussed to a certain degree. But with that said, are you ready to jump into our very first story for the day?
Let's jump.
So our first story comes to us from Aaron from South Carolina.
Ooh, beautiful
South
place.
Kakalaki. Just south of the state that Charlie and I both hope we'll find ourselves at in the next 30 years.
That's very true.
It is true. So she's a librarian.
Okay.
And she works for a library that she wished to be name anonymous. She doesn't want the name of the library listed.
All right, cool.
And also, because of that, I got rid of some of the details she gave me. Because it's kind of like, I don't say the name of it, but here.
So it doesn't say the name, but like this is where it is.
Yeah, it's like across from here,
Yeah.
the corner of this. But either way, it is a library in South Carolina, apparently a rural area.
I didn't know they had libraries.
in South Carolina.
I'm just kidding, obviously.
Jeez. It's a town with a lot of history, apparently.
That's hard to find a place without a lot of history.
Yeah, but this is a lot of history.
Oh, it's like a lot of extra history?
Yep, probably.
How'd they get the extra 200 years there? They got it.
They found it. They
Put it in there.
They found it in the closet, just a couple extra years.
Yeah.
And the library was built in 1905.
Okay.
So it's dusty.
1905.
Aaron has been working there since 2021 and was super excited to be a librarian there because, one, she loves old buildings, but also, with it being this old in a town with so much history,
Of course.
there's a chance it could be potentially haunted.
I'd say there's a strong chance considering where it is.
I'm not sure if it's because of existing paranormal history or she was just very lucky. Because sure enough, after her first 2 weeks of working there, she had her very first experience. And the experiences have continued since.
Boy.
So here's a breakdown of the library, because even though you don't know where it's at or what it's called, we're going to talk about it. So the main level of the library
Mhm.
houses all the books.
Lots of books.
Then you go through a doorway down 2 flights of stairs and you go to the basement.
Okay.
And this is where the staff kitchen and the staff bathroom is, as well as storage.
Staff kitchen.
It's big. It's a big library.
Okay.
It's big. And even though that sounds like it's the basement, there's also a sub-basement.
Oh, God.
Where if you don't return your library books on time, they throw you in there with the
That's how you pay your
Rancor.
fees.
Yeah. But no, but there is a sub-basement with a dirt floor. You have to exit the building to get there. So there's only one way in, one way out. So it's like, it's not from like inside the library. You have to go out.
So it's like a storm cellar kind of thing?
See, I didn't originally get that thought, but yeah, it's kind of like those 2 doors where it's like.
Yeah, so no one ever goes down there.
There's a hurricane. Yeah, well, for fun. I don't know.
You want to hang out in the dirt floor, kids?
You could pretend hurricane.
That's not a fun game.
It's not fun. And you don't want to lose.
No.
So Erin, her first experience took place down there. In that sub.
No one's surprised.
Erin went down to the basement, and as she hit the bottom step to enter, she heard a female voice whisper, "Someone's coming."
Oh, my God.
And she turned the corner, expecting to see one of her coworkers there. Don't know why they'd be down there either. Don't even know why Erin's down here. But there was no one there. And again, the only way to get down there is the same way that Erin just came down. So unless they ran past her and she had her eyes closed, it makes no sense that she heard a voice and there was no one else down there.
Oh, that actually gave me the chills.
Yeah, like, and also kind of like the phrasing, "someone's coming." It's like we know you're there. Like, it makes it seem like people are supposed to be, they're down there that aren't supposed to be. Like I would think like teenagers, right? Like, someone's coming, like hide, But it gives, the way she describes it gives the impression that you can't hide. Like they would see you if you were down there and there's no other way to get out.
It's interesting because it almost gives like they're sentient ghosts. They're not just like on repeat if they are down there.
Yeah, like they're aware. So since Erin is incredibly into the paranormal and on the sensitive side, rather than being freaked out or terrified, which I would have been, and I'm very much in the paranormal, but I would have been freaked. But she started looking for causes. What could have made this noise? What else could I be hearing? Is there a draft? So anything like that.
The wind's like, oh, someone's down there.
No, I mean like a hole in the library where she could have heard it from somewhere else.
Oh, okay. The wind whispering through the windows.
So she found nothing. She found nothing that could have naturally manifested as a human voice.
Right.
Which is why it's her first experience.
Yeah.
It's a memorable first experience. It's a voice. She got an
EVP. It's very scary.
It's not even an EVP. It's I heard it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of energy to produce that. So here's a few of Erin's other top paranormal experiences in her own words. Number 1, quote, "I was sitting outside on my lunch break when something made me feel like I needed to turn around and look up at the window. So I did. It was then that I saw a full figure of a woman. She was an African-American woman dressed in 18th century clothing with a white bonnet. She was just standing in the window looking down. There was no one in the building at the time because we closed the library for lunch every day." Unquote.
Hard pass. That's scary.
You know how pissed I'd be if I go to a library on like my lunch break and they're like, "We're on our lunch break." You all collectively decide like we're done. Like you can't be like, you go to lunch from 11 to 12 and then you go to lunch 12 to 1.
It's a small town, man.
I guess.
That's that southern speed right there.
They got like a sign that says "out for sweet tea."
Yeah.
I like sweet tea. Number 2, quote, "Fast forward a few months. We were planning on having a paranormal investigation. The night before the investigation, I ended up dreaming of the lady that I saw in the window just a few months prior. Except this time, she was in the basement. She was talking, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. The next day at the investigation, my medium friend casually says, 'Guys, I think we're going to have a good investigation tonight.' And I responded with a very typical, 'How so?' She then proceeds to go into detail with how she had a dream the night before about a lady in the basement. Well, she actually saw a shadow in her dream and heard a lady's voice. I told her about my dream, and it was bizarre because we had the same dream, but just different senses. I saw but didn't hear. She heard but only saw a shadow. Fast forward to that evening, during the investigation, our dream actually played out. We saw shadow figures, heard female voices in person and on EVP. We also have video of flashing orbs caught by the window that I originally saw the lady. The lights in the window we tried to debunk by going outside and shining flashlights and car lights into the window. The flashing orbs could not be replicated. Unquote.
It's very interesting.
Have you heard or talked to anybody that ever claimed to have the same dream as someone else?
I don't think so.
I feel like I've had friends that have had family members say that before. But this is interesting because it's not two people having the same dream. It's like two halves of the whole.
Yeah. Like the one heard something, the other one saw something, but the other sense was blocked off.
It's weird how that happens. Like, how did it know they were going to go investigate there? Or like, how was it put in their minds?
I wonder if it's like an excitement because she's there, she's working.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels that excitement.
But what about the medium? Like, why would the medium? Because the medium is probably not there all the time.
She's a medium. I think that's the answer.
But it just knew what was going to happen. Then I guess that's part of, I don't know. Like, it's crazy how they both got a piece of the puzzle, but it's just like, it was the same puzzle, but a different piece. Very interesting.
I want to know what it said. We don't know.
No.
That's it.
No. Except you. So Aaron's third and final encounter, quote, lastly, my boss's office had a big chandelier in the center. All the floors and the ceilings are concrete. So you run, you jump, bounce, you never feel it. They were cemented back in the 70s after the boiler in the sub-basement exploded, causing a fire. But one day, I was speaking with my boss, and all of a sudden, her chandelier started moving in a circle.
Wait, hold on. Her chandelier is made of cement?
No, the floors are made of cement.
Oh, okay.
So what she's saying is there's not like a wooden floor where if somebody's jumping up and down because they were excited about the new 50 Shades of Grey, it's not going to cause the chandelier beneath it to move.
Okay, I
it's
understand.
Cement.
Okay.
Like nothing above it should impact that ceiling.
I got that now. Okay, so I was confused.
Except for the birds in the wall. But they're in the walls, not the ceilings.
Yeah, not the cement, not the floors.
Yeah. But so this chandelier just starts circling around, and there's no draft in the room. It wasn't a windy day. There was no construction. And she said it continued to move in a circle for a good 30 minutes before slowing down and stopping. And even patrons noticed. That was the first time that I ever witnessed it, but she said that it happened before. We're constantly hearing voices, slamming doors, seeing lights turn off and on by themselves, shadow figures walk by, cold breezes out of nowhere. Reminder, we're in the South, where it hardly ever gets below 50 degrees, unquote.
Man, imagine like hearing voices and you're in a library, so you go, shh.
Yeah, shut
it's like out of Ghostbusters. And then you hear door slams, like, God damn, I was returning these books.
I wonder at what, I mean, obviously Aaron seems like the person that just doesn't bother her at all.
No.
But I wonder like if it bothers patrons or maybe they're not in there enough. Like, maybe you have to be
super bothered. Tell you what.
I'll be real. There was a time, maybe it was just recently. No, it wasn't yesterday. It was whenever we were at the studio last week.
Uh-huh.
And you left before me, or maybe it's something, maybe Ben, I don't know. I was here by myself for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I just got like chills and I started playing a podcast on my phone. And I've never had that in here before. And I've been here past midnight by myself before.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, you know, if you just get a feeling, like, especially that long hallway.
Yeah.
If you're the only one here and you look down that long hallway here, like, and there's nothing here, nothing I've experienced.
No.
I don't know about anyone else. But like, if you're in a known haunted place, like imagine like that. It has the movie It has a really good scene in a library that's terrifying.
Yeah.
With Ben, a different Ben, not producer Ben. And I feel like if you just get like caught up in those rows of books and you just feel like someone's watching you.
I felt that exact same feeling when I was in Sandifer by myself.
Yeah.
I felt that.
That's like, an Akron theater he's talking about.
Akron, University of Akron.
Yeah.
I was in the Sandifer theater. Everyone had left. I'd been there for about 5 minutes. And then I just felt this feeling just being stared at.
Was that the night?
Yeah.
With the doors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the night with the doors. I feel like I've talked about it a million times, but it was, that's what started it though, is I felt like I was being stared at.
Yeah. Like there's just sometimes, and this is what we talk about. So naturally I'm going to creep myself out. But there's just sometimes I'm so thankful that like you just have your phone to just play something silly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's Aaron's story. And I want to shout Aaron out because since these encounters, Aaron has started both a paranormal investigation team and a paranormal podcast. So shout out Ghost of the Coast Paranormal.
Very cool.
And Ghost of the Coast Paranormal Podcast.
Can we go on an investigation with them?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of people we got to go with. We got to go to Colorado
Yeah.
Go with Audrey.
Yeah.
And then we need to go. I still want to go with a middle-aged and creeped out in Indiana.
It's in Indiana, though.
Not tropically, warmer than Ohio. South Carolina sounds nice.
It does sound really nice. It's going to sound a lot nicer in a couple months.
Yes. And if you like these stories from Aaron and like the whole library feel, I definitely recommend you check out our Haunted Carnegie Library episode, which I think was in Pennsylvania.
It was in Pennsylvania.
Yes. So go check that out. But in the meantime, let's move our way over to our main story for this episode. All right, on to the main story for the episode. Again, I just want to put this up front. Trigger warning for physical abuse, suicidal thoughts. All of that is included in here. So please approach with caution. So this story is brought to us by Liz from Canada.
Cool. What part of Canada? Do we know?
It just says Canada.
Okay.
To be honest, Liz isn't even her name. If I told you her name, well, she's like, her name was this. And then at the end, because we always put, for privacy's sake, like, what do you want? You know? And she's like, I go by Liz.
Okay.
But the first name,
unknown.
It starts with a very different letter.
Okay.
I'll tell you off the air, but it's just, you wouldn't, maybe it's a middle name. I don't know.
There's about 25 other options, but it's fine.
So this takes place in Canada. She notes that essentially her paranormal experiences are lifelong. Just putting that up front.
I didn't know there were ghosts in Canada.
What?
It was kind of a joke.
What do you mean?
I didn't know there were ghosts in Canada.
Ghosts in Canada. They're just very polite. Hey, boo.
Hey, excuse me. Boo.
Didn't mean to scare you there.
Ooh, you got a croaker there? I don't know. Is that a donut?
A croaker?
A croaker? I think I made that up.
I think you're watching hockey? So anyway, let's get into it. Liz starts by mentioning that she had an imaginary friend named Carrie.
Oh.
Now, I've never had an imaginary friend, or at least to my knowledge. Maybe my parents listen, so maybe they can say otherwise. But you've had one, right, Charlie?
I did.
Do you want to?
Toby.
Toby?
He was a Skeeter ripoff from Doug. He had green skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he a frog?
No, he was a dude. He looked like Skeeter.
He wasn't a frog, though.
No, he was not a frog.
A toad?
No.
Just green skin.
Just a green skin.
Okay. So,
I was an only child.
So Carrie, the imaginary friend, was incredibly vivid.
Ooh.
Like, blurred the line of what a simple imaginary friend was versus one that maybe you interacted with but believed something was there. And as an adult now, Liz is an artist and can still draw and paint Carrie flawlessly.
Wow.
As a child, Carrie was very, very real to Liz. Liz would buckle Carrie in the car. She would save her seat at the dinner table, everything. They were as inseparable as a child and an imaginary friend could be. And to be clear, this was encouraged by her parents, too.
Okay.
Like, Liz's parents thought it was a strong display of creativity.
Sure.
And didn't find it unusual or alarming, which I think is fine.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I found a study from Healthline that states up to 65% of children up to the age of 7 have an imaginary friend. So I think it checks out. I think it's good.
It does. I don't remember my mom feeling one way or the other about it, but I don't think I felt that my imaginary friend was very vivid. I don't think it was like, I didn't think it was actually there. I played it with it, but it wasn't like.
What do you do if like your kid is like, hey, you didn't make a plate of food for Toby?
Oh. Do
you as a parent be like, well,
I'd be like,
too
well,
bad. He doesn't need to eat today.
I think you do like, well, here's some imaginary food, or here's some food for, and you pull Rufio and you put some food
the
on there.
It's like, do you think I'm like, there's nothing there.
That's when
he's going to starve.
That's when you seek a child psychologist.
Okay. And beyond the natural element of, having imaginary friend, Liz says that making and keeping friends wasn't something that she was great at a young age, which just made her lean into the imaginary friend Carrie even more.
I feel that too.
All their time together. But one thing that Liz acknowledged that I think is interesting, based on your own personal experience with a green imaginary friend, is that when she was talking to her friends at an older age, she discovered that it was strange that Carrie was just a very normal, very typical human, quote, human imaginary friend.
Okay.
Everyone else that she knew, that she talked to about it, they had a dragon or an elf or an elephant. Like, it
very
was
D&D based friends.
They had a roll to see what the friend could do. But it was very unusual. In my notes, I was like, yours was a toad, right? Apparently not. Just a green
No,
person.
it's just a green
Just
guy.
Skeeter.
Just Skeeter.
Right. So anyway, as time went on, Carrie was given the same treatment as most imaginary friends, shoved into the mental attic, so to speak,
Yeah.
while we grow up and have bigger concerns than what we're going to play today, or whether you want your sandwich cut down the middle or diagonal.
You got to go diagonal.
I had my sandwich today was diagonal.
Just because it makes it look longer.
Yeah.
It's a mental trick.
Got to focus on careers and school and dating and taxes and passing your student loans down to your children.
That's right.
That's the way to do it. But it wasn't the same transition for Carrie. Instead of transitioning from imaginary friend to non-existent, she kind of made a paranormal transition, which is, of course, why you're hearing about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
So in Liz's teens, she always felt something around her, something strange. When she would lose things, they would show up in places that she knew she looked before. She would have dreams of her childhood best friends, and then as she woke up, she would see something, as she put it, walking out of her room.
Ooh.
And she still remains skeptical, but she tries to be really aware and understanding of everything that she experiences. And some of it is hard to explain. So here's an experience in Liz's words. Quote, I never connected the things happening to my imaginary friend until one day my mom reminded me of her as we were looking through drawings of Carrie that I made, and I recognized her as my friend in the dream. This would lead me to seeing Carrie for the first time in 12 years. We were talking about how much I loved her when I realized I could still conjure up her image as if she existed. I shook it off and continued on with my day. It was when I went into my room and very clearly I caught a teenage girl with Carrie's features in a very much hippie attire turn and look at me and run off into the wall. And this all happened in a matter of seconds. She was there and then she wasn't. At 16, I just saw my grown-up imaginary friend. She had aged with me. She stayed around me, but it never felt bad. Friends, when they stayed over, they would tell me they would see a girl. And I didn't want to be a freak, so I just laughed at them. Unquote.
Oh, boy.
The fact, the imaginary friend aging with you, I feel like it kind of makes sense because it's your own mental representation. So maybe when you're 5, you're going to have a 5-year-old mental representation, and when you're 16, it's going to be 16.
Or it's projecting itself that way.
Yes, you can look at it multiple ways. I'm just, a large part of our discussion is going to be what we think, whether, how do I want to put it? I don't want to say existence because no matter what to Liz, it's real. So I don't want to put existence, but like what this could really be. Is it an imaginary friend? Is it something else? Like that's going to be the heart of the discussion.
Okay. God almighty. That's, it's got me feeling ways.
Yeah. So the next time that Carrie seemed to play a prominent role in Liz's life was when she was older with one of her significant others. Liz describes this relationship with her ex-boyfriend as the absolute worst 4 years of her life.
Jeez.
And to be clear about it, without going into too much detail, Liz states that she was knocked out cold multiple times in his fits of rage.
Jesus Christ.
Which is
tragic,
that's terrible, disgusting.
Unacceptable.
Yeah. No, it's terrible.
I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah. But the physical trauma and abuse that Liz experienced at the hands of her ex-boyfriend had a very unexpected effect. It brought Carrie back. In fact, Carrie made herself very well known. Here's another quote from Liz. Quote, he would wake up from night terrors or gasping for breath lots of times. I once woke up before he did, and I saw a shadow of a woman with her hands pressed against his face, which was quickly followed by him struggling to breathe. Then he would start screaming and wake up breathless. My dreams of Carrie also resumed, and in my dreams, she was always screaming, "Get out." There was never any context. I would just remember the vivid yelling of "Get out." During times when he'd be yelling and building up to probably what would have been another punch or lunge or God knows what, one of our phones would ring and there would never be anyone on the line. My caller ID always read that it was my mom. His car would also randomly stop working while he was at his tattoo shop that was an hour away from where we lived. I was the tattoo artist too, but to keep whispers and all that stuff down, I switched shops when we started dating. So that led to a lot of nights where he couldn't get home. And on these nights, I would feel so much relief knowing that he wasn't coming home. Even more weird was when his car was taken to the mechanics, they always looked at it and said it was fine, and it would almost seemingly instantly start working again. On nights where I'd be crying and shaking and on the verge of taking my own life, I would randomly feel as if someone had their arms around me and were squeezing me, but not in a threatening kind of way. Unquote.
Wow.
Very heavy.
Yeah.
But this is the second time that we've heard of an entity kind of comforting.
Yeah.
We talked about that recently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, recently in the last few months, I guess.
I wonder. I'm very curious to what you have to say about what is going on here.
Well, what are your thoughts?
I'm going back and forth between maybe some kind of maybe guardian spirit, guardian angel, versus maybe a ghost of a relative.
And you think that could have been the same ghost as an imaginary friend?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's some kind of guardian spirit and it shifts shape, shifts power. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I have thoughts.
So the next experience for Liz was the worst of all. He physically abused her to the point that Liz was put in a coma. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And after that, he killed 2 of her guinea pigs.
Oh, that's just not nice. That's just
not. I like how I don't like that. Got a bigger reaction than that. It's interesting how animals hit us in different ways.
It's very true.
I probably should have put a trigger warning for that up front too.
Well, there's a bunch of trigger warnings, but
yeah, but it's a very, very bad person.
That's very sad.
Very bad person. She's in a coma, and the whole experience was a blur for Liz. She doesn't remember the events leading up to the fight, the blow, or anything else, but she does very vividly remember her dreams while she was in a coma. It was the same intense yelling of "get out," but this time the words "look what he's done to you," and "you've got to turn around" were being screamed, swirling around in her head. Shortly after this, no surprise, her ex-boyfriend was arrested and charged.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get away with that. This isn't CW.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's. I hope the full extent of the law was enforced.
Yeah, dude has issues.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she's alive.
Obviously this wasn't at home when this has happened. She's moved out at this point.
Yeah, this is in the past. Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah,
she's moved on from this. Thankfully. Unfortunately, though, as the owner of a tattoo shop, and apparently he was a very respected artist in the area, it made it difficult for her to find work.
That's terrible.
She was a guy that got the artist locked up. I don't know. She didn't say that explicitly. That's the way I took it. But
yeah,
we're not going to hire her. We don't want to, get us It just. I don't know if that's the angle that people were taking with it.
He can't be that respected if he did that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the dynamics.
I know it's a very niche community, I think, but
yeah,
even still,
he was one of our own. I don't know.
That's terrible.
I'm not speaking for all tattoo artists.
No.
I don't know the context of this. It sucks that because of him, she had trouble finding work anywhere, regardless of how he was viewed by other people.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. So she left the tattoo world and entered the pet world, and currently owns and runs her own pet supply store, along with a rescue center for all animals.
Wow, that's awesome.
So here's another quote from Liz. The story doesn't end there. Once I recovered and was back in my hometown, my friend and I went to this annual festival that we have. It was there that I found myself in the tent of a medium. Again, understand, I'm still skeptical, but it was a festival, so why not? I remember sitting down, and right away this woman's eyes widened and then saddened. She looked at me and said, "I see heavy burdens." And I was like, yeah, no shit. It's important to note that at this time, I still had remnants of a broken nose, broken jaw, and black eyes.
Yeah. So she wasn't using her psychic powers. She was using her visual powers.
Yeah. She touched on my broken spirit, but then she dropped a bombshell. In mid-sentence, she stopped and said, "You don't have a twin. My father's a twin who actually lost his brother tragically to suicide. However, they were adopted, so we don't fully know how deep twins run in our actual DNA." Speechless, I just shook my head no. She told me that there was a tragedy in my family where a set of twins were separated by death. She seemed pretty adamant that the twins were female. She believed that I was given the spirit of the lost twin so she could finally have her own life. She mentioned that my twin still follows my spirit around and acts as my spirit guide. All of this information I took in stride. I could handle. But then she said, I can't see her name, but I see the letter C. My world came crashing down. My stomach flipped as Carrie's face popped into my head. However, I do want to say I don't fully believe that my dad and his story with his twin have anything to do with this. I've had my close friend, who's all over this type of thing, share ideas that maybe it's related. However, my uncle passed away when I was 3 years old, so technically my spirit probably was already claimed. Unquote. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because there's enough dots to connect with her father, but they just don't quite add up. Like there's like the twin thing, and she's like, what do you mean? And then it's like, oh, my dad had a twin, but he passed away. So you're like, oh,
yeah,
maybe it's then. And she's like, what is a girl? And it's like, okay, that doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
And she's like, and she's like, but I see the letter C, and the name happened to be Carrie. So you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense again. But then it's like, yeah, but the father passed away 3 months.
Not to be a total like negative Nancy, but that's what like cold readers do. Is they say like this name that starts with a C. Could it be anyone that you know? And it's like, oh yeah, but also it's strange because I know cold readers are a thing, but also I don't believe that every medium is a cold reader.
It's kind of like mechanics. Like my father is a very good mechanic, and people keep going to their shop because it's a small town. Well, it's a local shop.
Yes,
it's a local shop that people respect. But you go to other people. And, you can't trust a mechanic or a lawyer.
Yeah.
There's some very, very, very good lawyers, but they have a rep of, like...
The sharks.
Yeah. So I think... Or car salesman, right?
Right.
So I feel like for every real legitimate medium, there's always that person at the local festival that's just trying to...
I don't know, though. It's weird because I could almost see your point. I don't know.
But I don't even think she knows what to take from it yet.
Yeah. Did that happen recently?
In the last, I don't know, probably the last 5-6 years.
Okay.
But you have more experience with mediums than I do. I've never been to a medium reading. I actually have no interest in going.
I have.
You went to the whole festival town, right?
Yeah, I have 2 experiences with mediums. We can talk about at the end of this because it doesn't necessarily connect to this.
Okay, we'll bring that up in the discussion.
Okay.
So where is Liz today? She's doing okay, as well as someone with her past trauma could. Obviously, you're not walking on sunshine. She said that Carrie still makes small, casual appearances. She might catch her coming down the stairs or in her pet room looking over the small pets. Her current boyfriend, who it seems like treats her well, is a skeptic to a certain degree. He thinks that not that it's necessarily not real or not that he doesn't believe her, but that it's probably better not to acknowledge these things.
Yeah, not to give it energy, right?
Don't give it power, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but let's just not pay attention to it.
Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. Let's not give it power.
And he enjoyed her story of Carrie. Like, he thought it was interesting, but he never experienced her early on until one night.
Oh, my.
He had just gotten out of the shower, and he walked into the kitchen, and he saw a female who, from the side profile, basically could pass for Liz. So she was leaning on the counter, she had a book open, and she was reading, which is, according to Liz, a activity and position that Liz often did, the leaning over reading a book in the kitchen. So her boyfriend sees it. It's like, cool. He walks over to the coffee maker and he's about to talk to her, but then he remembered Liz is not home. Liz is out. She is working. She's going to be out late. This cannot be Liz. So he quickly turns and the girl was gone, but the book was left there open. Creepy. Ooh, creepy. Like, you are not alone, Liz's boyfriend.
No, that's it's bad. It's not necessarily bad. It's just a lot.
It is a lot. I think a lot's a good way of putting it. So Carrie definitely still lingers, not as prominent.
Pretty prominent to me. I don't know.
Well, I guess. Liz says that she plans to look more into her dad's biological side and anything to do with the twins. But for now, that is Liz and Carrie's story.
Oh, I wanted more conclusion from that.
No. Oh. This is real life. You don't get conclusions, but what you do get is discussion. All right, so before we get to the discussion, we like to stop the episode and thank our newest patrons, who, as of the recording of this episode, is Miranda.
Yay!
Thank you, Miranda. Thank you for joining our Patreon. There's tons of bonus content on there. I want to shout mine out because I don't want you to steal what I'm about to say.
You go ahead.
I actually thought about something I wanted to say this time.
Okay.
But normally I'm like, Charlie, why don't you? And you would be
Why
like,
don't you say something? Well, I think
like,
of something.
I'm going to say the exact same thing that you already thought of. So, it's fall.
Yes.
It's football time. It's apple picking time. It's pumpkin patch time. But it's also, if you're not living in South Carolina, it's cooler temperatures time.
That's true.
Which means it's hoodie season, y'all. And if you join our not tier, it is our highest Patreon tier. If you are in that tier for 3 months, not only do you get our exclusive Patreon only t-shirt, not only do you get our yearly 2023 enamel pin that will no longer be available after December 31st, 2023, you get the exclusive not tier BTB hoodie.
It's very cool.
It's a hoodie. It's an awesome design. It's got Hat Man. It's got UFO. It's got Black Eyed Kids on it.
Listen, the colors on this hoodie are amazing.
Pop City. Taylor
love
Swift
them.
pop in your face.
They're very neat.
It is an awesome hoodie design. And you know what? I know you're going to get it. You know how I know you're going to get it? Because I took control back. It was like Patreon.
We had a whole battle. We had a whole boss battle with Patreon.
You get to level 47 and your little sibling is like, let me try. And you're like, no, I put a lot of time in this. And come on, it'll be easier. You can watch. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And you hand them the controller. And you just see that life bar start draining and draining. And then the blue bar starts draining. What is that again?
Mana.
Yeah, just going. And then you just got to take it back.
Yeah.
You just got to take it back.
We can talk about the whole situation we have with Patreon, but I'm glad we took it back.
Oh, also, if you are already on Patreon and you listen to this month's Beyond the Bizarre, I promise you there will be much behind the scene, but we'll say positive here. So yes. I definitely recommend the hoodie. Charlie, what would you like to highlight from our Patreon catalog?
Something I want to highlight is, do you believe the Bizarre?
I do.
Which is a game that we play with producer Ben, where he reads us stories. There's 3 sections. He reads us 3 stories each section, and Tyler and I, we face off. We have to pick the story that producer Ben wrote.
Right. The other 2 are real, and one is
found on the internet real.
Yeah, and one is fake, and we try to deduce
which one Ben wrote, which Tyler is pretty good at figuring out.
It's a lot of fun, and you get to play along too while you're listening.
Yeah. And you get to listen, find out some things about producer Ben. He's a great storyteller.
Yeah, very good writer, very good storyteller. So it's a fun segment because there's the competition level in it, which is fun.
Yeah, I don't like to lose.
You can play at home too.
I don't like to lose, and you'll find that out about me.
So we got quizzes, we got t-shirts, pins, hoodies. We rewatch old episodes. We get quizzed on our own episodes. We quiz each other on new episodes. Google Hangouts, Netflix watch parties. Tons of bonus content over on the Patreon. I hate stamps. That'll be another thing that you can hear about later. How much I hate stamps. And
not a fan of stamps right now
either.
The whole
mailing system needs to be reworked.
I agree.
That's neither here or there, but let's meet and talk in the discussion. All right, so just to be clear, and it's not a knock on the story, but some stories are like wrapped up with a bow.
Yeah.
Like Aaron's library is haunted, right? Are we down with that?
Yeah,
like
that
it's
one's
a haunted
library is for sure haunted.
Most things built in 1905 by this point are probably haunted.
I think that's accurate.
It's probably just all the negative energy of people that it's the night before your research papers due. And
in the library? Yeah.
And it's like, you can't just go on Wikipedia in 1905. You got to
read books.
You got to go in the Dewey Decimal System. And
you got to go in the floor, the basement with the dirt floor.
You know what you can't do? You had to really highlight shit. Well, you actually can't even highlight because it's not your book. You know what you can do now? Command F.
That's right.
You're going to find that keyword you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Like people in school before 2000s, like the amount of work that they had to put in for papers and stuff.
I know. Well, my
Kudos.
mom was getting her master's degree in like the 80s, which I don't know how she did that. I would die. I would have died.
Imagine doing like a PhD dissertation then. Like they just so much respect, but I'm so thankful.
It would hurt so bad.
No, I did a paper one time where you had to do that. Like you weren't allowed to use online sources.
My aunt's got her PhD. and she got it in the past, where she had to do it by hand and stuff.
By hand. She had to chisel on rocks.
She had to do it all by hand.
But anyways,
terrible.
Library is haunting.
Yes.
So let's move on to Liz's story with Carrie. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you ever think it was an imaginary friend? Because there's kind of a time jump. There's like her as a kid where it was just there. It was like but okay, I have an idea, I have a thought about it, but I want to hear your opinion first. But again, remember, it's this imaginary friend who doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then later on, I guess because she's not in danger.
I would say there's no reason for her to do anything.
But she still didn't.
Yeah.
She didn't do anything. And then she comes back like 12 years later.
I hate to throw the word tulpa around.
I specifically wrote in here that I don't think it's a tulpa just because I don't believe in tulpas. It's a thought form, energy, spirit.
Listen, you and some Buddhist monks need to sit down and have a conversation about what a tulpa really is.
I don't think they want to talk. I think they just want to meditate.
Like, shut up, Tyler.
You're talking too much. This is why you don't have profound thoughts.
Like, but I don't think they're real. And they're like,
how long have I been in South Carolina?
Man, maybe it's a thought form energy. Maybe it was this entity that was always with her because it was always very vivid, right?
Mm-hmm. Always.
So that's interesting too.
And she aged. I don't know enough about imaginary friends. I guess because most adults probably don't ever see them again or think about them or they repress them.
Right.
It was like she was able to draw her imaginary friend aging. There's just something creepy, not creepy in like a I'm scared way, maybe unsettling. It catches you off guard. The idea of it. There's just something strange about it. Like
they should almost be eternal in your mind, because they are.
And there's two thoughts. It's like you always picture it being. It's like I feel like we talked about this recently, but maybe not. If you see an actor in a movie from the 90s and you never see them again, and then you see them in an interview or something, you expect them to look like they were in the. I mean, not rationally. I don't know why I'm going here. Joey Gladstone from Full House.
Yeah.
You see him and you're like, oh yeah, Dave Coulier. He's going to look like this. And then you see him on a podcast and he looks fine still, but obviously
he's aged
30 years older.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa.
Unlike Jennifer Aniston.
You're like, I'm getting old. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that with an imaginary friend where if you saw it again, but that's why it feels like it has agency on its own. Mm-hmm. Unless Liz is the one making it age. Like, I was 7, it is 7. I'm 16, it's 16. Maybe she's putting that out there, but if she's not, because I feel like she was reminded of her imaginary friend.
Yes, she was.
It was hidden in a way, although she claims she always felt something was around her. She did say that, but she didn't think about Carrie until she was reminded about Carrie.
But what if, hear me out.
Yeah.
Carrie was an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
She's reminded. And this thing that was around her
takes it on.
Takes that.
That is, honestly, if this is a true story, that is the most believable version of it to me. Like, I
really?
Yeah.
I don't like that, though.
Well, it doesn't have to be sinister.
I think the idea that it takes something from your childhood and shapes it to make it its own is sinister.
That sounds pretty sinister. That sounds pretty bad.
Yeah, it sounds not good.
But it doesn't seem like this thing is
like
bad.
Who's behind the mask?
But this thing, like, if you look at the actions of it, it seems like it's not.
It wants her intention, her good intent.
Yes.
Oh man.
Another thing that's interesting about it is that when she was young, it was always around.
Yeah.
Lunch, dinner, car.
Yeah.
It's not always around when she's older.
Oh,
like she saw it all day. Like it was there all the time when she was younger, which again makes me think if it's not her, it's either in her that she's putting it out there and it's a mental thing. Mm-hmm. By mental thing, I mean like she's projecting it.
Right.
Or projecting on something else externally that is there, but she's putting Carrie on it. Like she either Carrie was an imaginary friend and an entity took it on, or Carrie was an imaginary friend and now she's putting it on something else.
Well, here's the thing. How does that explain the last story where the boyfriend?
Because the boyfriend knew about it.
So it knew to take that shape.
Yeah, so I guess it couldn't be internal on just Liz then.
No. What if it always was? we haven't really talked about an episode. We should do one.
Guardian angel type thing.
Should be like a guardian angel. What if it's always been this guardian angel?
Well, there's the idea with like her family bloodline. Like it could be an ancestral, and not entity, but like someone in her bloodline that's looking out for her. Whether it's like a past ancestor or like a bloodline guardian angel. I don't know if that's a thing. Kind of pull that out.
Maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, no, there's definitely a chance. Like for me, there's a chance of anything. And I could see that angle. For some reason, for me, it makes the most sense that she just had a genuine imaginary friend that was not there. Nothing was there. Nothing was there. She made it up. Something else started following her. Something else was around her. Good or bad.
I still don't
mostly
like it.
good. And then it just, and maybe but also Liz could be wrong. Like it might not be Carrie, right? Like not in that it's actually not Carrie, but when she sees this thing at 16, it doesn't mean that it's a grown version of what she saw at 7. It could just be something completely different that she's assuming is an older Carrie.
That could be true too.
Because when she's younger, she wasn't hearing like the voices, like the get out, but it didn't need to happen,
right.
I guess. I mean, we'll never know.
No, I know. Yeah, that's the thing we're never going to find out, but I like to think in my head that this has been something that's been with her since a child. That has been some kind of good.
A force of good.
Yeah.
Force of looking out for her. Because right now, it almost seems like a roommate again. It's like, hey, I'm your imaginary friend. I'm going to hang out with you.
Yeah.
When it's convenient, we'll have fun. And then she's like, okay, you're going through your formative years. I'll chill. And then she starts dating boys that she shouldn't. And then it gets really, really intense and heavy. And she's like, I have to make myself known again. And then it's like, okay, now you're good. I'm going to still hang around. I got to remind your boyfriend, hey, treat her right.
Yeah. Well, I like to think that maybe some kind of higher power knew she was going to have this protection. I mean, obviously we can't know if you even believe in that kind of thing, which I'm not sure I do, but I like that idea.
If there's anything doing this podcast has taught me, it's that I don't know many things and I can live with that.
Yeah.
So on our believability scale of believable to viable, to skeptical, to unbelievable, where do you put, how do I want to frame this?
I was going to ask you.
I'm going to say, well, obviously she had an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the way I want to frame it. Unbelievable is that this entity is purely imagination. It is an imaginary friend.
Mm-hmm.
It is her own mind helping her cope with her trauma. She had an innocent imaginary friend at a young age, and then as she got older and started having terrible experiences with a terrible person, it came back as a form of a coping mechanism that her boyfriend happened to see by himself too. Or he's a liar. I don't know. So that's unbelievable. Believable is this is not just an imaginary friend. This is an entity that exists and it has its own intent, and it is actionable, and it wasn't just an imaginary friend.
Valuable and skeptical or somewhere in the middle, I assume.
Well, yeah.
Obviously. I'm going to go with believable. I think this is some kind of entity that has its own intention that I think, knock on wood, is good.
I'm going to go believable post 16. I think I do.
You added a caveat.
No. Because it doesn't matter, because it's either real or not.
It's true.
I think she had an imaginary friend when she was young. I don't think that's the same thing that she was experiencing at an older age.
I find it interesting that we both went believable, but for different ideas.
Well, it can't be all internal because her boyfriend. If she didn't, if she didn't include that ending part with her boyfriend, I could probably reason that it was just like her own body's will to keep peace, like that.
All the way down to unbelievable, maybe.
I don't know. I probably
maybe
wouldn't have gone
skeptical.
unbelievable. The worst I would have done is skeptical, because it's not so far out there.
I don't know. There's other things too, like the bad guy. He was choked.
Yeah, that's true.
That she saw.
That's actually a really good. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Unless he just had sleep apnea.
Some bad guac before bed.
Sleep apnea, right? That makes you.
Oh yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually forgot about that. Because how else can you explain the boyfriend or that if it's not external?
That's why I went believable.
Damn. That's a really good point. Okay. Wait, I went believable, didn't
You
I?
did, yeah, you did.
Why did I think I was
don't know.
going
You're
bio?
like being
I was
talked
like-
into
I was tossing-
your own rating.
I know. I was tossing and turning.
You're
Yeah,
like, what a good point I had.
I'm creating this own force to reinforce my own beliefs. No, I agree. I still think that she had an imaginary friend, and then even though it sounds sinister, I think something kind of took that. But it's not like it said, "Hey, I'm Carrie. Remember me?" Liz is like, "Oh, it's Carrie," which makes sense. Humans like to draw connections and see patterns.
Definitely pulls down mask.
Oh God, it's like the moment in Men in Black where he's like, "Oh, is that Brother?" That's Carrie.
Yeah.
So that is our episode on the protective imaginary friend. Certainly protective.
That's good.
Very quickly, and I know you're going to want to go quickly because you're not going to want to add much more time to this. But tell your medium stuff.
Oh, okay. So I did a medium in college at a Halloween party. So I was dressed as a Hershey Kiss.
Oh, that was Boo at the Roo?
Yeah. And
that was not real. No matter what they told you, it's
I
not
was
real.
gonna say I didn't.
Were you a
buy
Hershey
it.
Kiss or were you a Chipotle burrito?
I think it was a Hershey Kiss.
You had the top. You had the head.
It turned into a burrito because I lost the hat.
Okay.
Anyway, so I didn't believe that medium. I think she was kind of full of shit. She was just kind of saying what she was putting on.
You're very sweet.
And then I went to this place called Lilydale in New York. It's on Lake Erie. It's this beautiful little community. It's like 10 streets, and the whole thing is psychics.
Like instead of a credit score, you have to have a medium score to
You
live there.
literally have to pass a test to live there.
Jeez.
There's stray cats everywhere. It's very cool. It's crazy crowded during the summer. They do like big like open readings and stuff, and they have like this like fairy garden. And I went to this giant like thing, this giant like outdoor event with my friends and my fiance, and I got called on for my mom. And you could have said maybe she was doing a cold reading. She was very personal in front of, I'd say 150 people.
Yeah.
And it got to me. It was very, very touching.
I remember you telling me about it.
So, I mean, there's the two extremes. It's like, I think that one was real, and the one in the school, which was private.
Yeah.
Which could have even been easier to do a cold read.
Right.
I didn't believe her at all.
I think it's good to be able to identify, like, you don't want to be black and white. Like, there is gray area in about everything in life. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some real, there's some not. If I was a medium and I had those abilities, I would lean so hard into it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like living there. I'd be just going on the street and just, that's probably not how it works for these people, but no, that's very cool.
It's a cool community.
Yeah.
We should go there sometime for real.
I don't know. I have no interest in being red.
You don't have to be red. It's just a cool vibe.
I'm going to
dude.
put a block up.
You would love it.
I'm just going to be thinking in my head, don't call me, don't call me, don't call me.
That's when they call on you.
I did when Ben and I were in Vegas together, producer Ben, we went to America's Got Talent. Is that what it was? It was one of those things where it's like a bunch of people that were popular or didn't win, but they go to Vegas and they just do a bunch of shows.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And there was a crowd reader like that, and I was just like purposefully like blanking. I'm
Please
like,
don't
don't read any. I don't know why. It feels invasive.
Yeah.
No, but, that's just me. But we appreciate you guys listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you enjoy all of our episodes, or at least, more than 85%, and you're listening on Apple,
What a good score.
leave a 5-star review and all of your thoughts. If you're on Spotify, you can comment directly on this episode. You can comment on any of our previous episodes. Charlie, if this is somebody's first time listening to this podcast, which doesn't seem likely because this doesn't seem like an episode you would just first land on. I feel like this is the second, third, or fourth. But regardless, let's say this is somebody's first episode they've ever listened to of us. What episode do you recommend they go to next?
This is their first.
Yes.
So it depends what they want to do. If they want something kind of conspiratorial, I would say the Denver airport is a good one because that's full of fun conspiracies. But if they want something scary, we just did a really good episode on the Hide Behind, which you presented. And we also did the Ghost of the Japanese Tsunami, which was a while ago. But
it was in the studio, so it doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
It was in the studio. But that one's also got some really good ghost stories.
I don't care what you like. I don't care what you're into. You got to go listen to the abduction of Antonio Villas-Boas.
Oh yeah,
That'll always be my favorite. I think I love the Flatwoods Monster though too.
that one's really that one's up there too
But
for sure.
Antonio Villas-Boas, I think, because and it's also like it's 27 minutes or 28 minutes. Like it was
Short.
It's like popcorn. It's just great. It's excellent. I love that episode. But like I said, you probably have listened to other ones first. This isn't one that I don't think you're gonna just jump on. But we appreciate you for listening. If you want more bonus content, head over to Patreon. We already pitched it earlier. There's 4 different tiers. Every single tier goes a long way in supporting the podcast. We really appreciate it. We put a lot of time and hard work, and I really truly believe that just about anybody in the Patreon would vouch for that. It's a big part of why we were talking about, like, joking but not quite joking about handing over merch to Patreon, then taking it back, because we have our own standards for what we think our listeners deserve. And we want to make sure that was done well. But there's quizzes, there's games. We literally jump on Google Meet once a month and just talk, shoot the breeze,
That's
whatever.
a fun time.
We watch horror movies.
We have also quarterly games we haven't talked about for a minute.
That's coming up next month.
Yes.
Quarterly
That's what made me
virtual.
think of it.
Quarterly virtual game night.
And also, if you're not a Patreon member and you're just listening, we also appreciate that, because if that wasn't happening, this wouldn't be happening.
100%. 100%. We appreciate all and any support, because there's a million options. I mean, I think there's, I don't know how many podcasts there are. I knew
there's
at
a
one
lot.
point, I knew at one, well, there's like an active versus how many exist. There's many, and not just podcasts. There's video games, there's movies, there's streaming, there's live sports, there's documentaries.
There's TikTok. You can lose hours on
YouTube.
TikToks.
There's a million things.
I've done it.
A million things you could be doing, but you're choosing to listen to us. And trust me, we do appreciate that. So thank you, everybody, so much. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.